right, everyone, we are back with the same group of panelists that we met back in Module 1, but this time we're zooming in on the first 90 days of working in the creative industry. There's a quote that I really love from a book that's actually called The First 90 Days. It's a book by Michael Watkins, and he says, "The President of the United States has 100 days to prove their value. You only have 90. In many design roles, the pace of the work moves quickly. That it moves so quickly that 90 days can sometimes feel like a luxury, actually. Hiring managers, team leads, and clients often make split judgments about your value in just a few weeks, maybe even a couple days, maybe even several hours. I'd love to ask our panelists to sort of reflect on those early days and what it was really like in their roles back then. Whether you are stepping into your first internship or your 5th full-time job, it kind of doesn't matter. You always have those first 90 days where it's important to make the right impression. And how you show up during that initial window can really shape your entire experience of working at that job. Sometimes it will even decide if you get to keep that job. So, jumping in here, what were your first 90 days like in your current role? Amy, let's start with you.
At the Arizona Cardinals?
Yes.
It was daunting. It was very daunting. So for a lot of people, I got hired out of my internship, which was an agency, right into the Arizona Cardinals. So it was extremely scary because it was that shift where I went from agency where it was a lot more relaxed. You can work from anywhere. You can, we always had snacks. We always were hanging out. Snacks are important. I don't know if you guys are on that for me, but
and music.
like snacks are a big deal. So it was a lot more relaxed and casual. And then going into that corporate environment, you had to like badge in, badge out. Now we have security. You're always being watched on camera. You walk in with the players, and so it's like, oh, you can't talk to them because they're supposed to be focused. And there was just a lot in terms of culture and just a shift of how things, for me, that used to be so casual that I knew well as a designer were changing. So in-house, it's really just figuring out the environment and the culture that you're going to be in, and then also trying to adapt to the work that you now need to do. So I had an extra layer for me just trying to adapt to the culture from what I was used to, and then the usual HR paperwork, all of that other stuff, and then being thrown into, hey, there's only 2 of us. That, when I started, was the first time my boss went on a vacation in like a decade. Because it was him working by himself. Yeah. So then he was like, it's great that you're here. I'm going on vacation.
Drink quick.
Yeah, so it was a lot of just kind of being thrown in the deep end, and figuring out how to flail or swim or drown. So it was just very daunting. Yeah. Again, I adapted.
Again, forged in the fire,
dumpster
fire of corporate. Yeah, I love it. Jen, what were your first 90 days like?
Overwhelming. And I don't think there's a way to get around that because there's so much more than just the role you were brought in to do. There's training and onboarding, and depending on the size of your company, that could be with multiple departments and people. It's meeting coworkers, it's forging bonds with them and figuring out where you're gonna fall in the mix, and it's a lot for it being a first big girl job. But if you do it right and you start making those connections early and you find your people, I think that definitely helps. And just embrace the overwhelming because it's meant to be that way.
little like drinking out of a fire hose.
Yes.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Eric, first 90 days. What does that look like?
Coming from the big team that I was part of into full-time running my own business, it was quiet.
Sort of the drone in the air.
It was like the eyes of the universe are staring at you like, what are you gonna do now? It was very quiet. And it took me a while to get used to that silence of, no, there aren't meetings scheduled on Tuesday at 10 like there normally are. And no, there aren't more meetings about meetings on Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And, no, there isn't going to be lunch with everyone on Thursday afternoon. And all those things start to flood in, and you're like, I'm really out on my own. I'm losing sight of that shoreline where I was with everyone, and I'm going out into the open. And so it was getting used to that and starting to make my own routine and form my own path towards doing work and getting work and making things happen. So it was about forming the things I would do day to day to keep me and start growing my culture of my studio. So in a way, it's really empowering, but it's also a little scary, and a lot scary sometimes. But it was such a interesting feeling, yeah.
And then the meeting that could have been email on Friday, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, thank you. Corey, what are the first 90 days like for you?
Well, for president of AIGA, I am in those 90 days right now.
right.
And almost everyone on this panel is witnessing firsthand those 90 days.
You're doing great, sweetie.
Oh, thank you. So it's kind of a mix between understanding you're simultaneously standing on the shoulders of success of everyone who came before you. But you're also simultaneously eating the sin of everyone who came before you as well. And in between, there's a lot of detective work. And is it overwhelming? I don't know if it's overwhelming, but it is a challenge. And you don't want to let people down. And everything you do in those 90 days sets the tone of whether they'll trust you, follow you, respect you, listen to you, all those things. So I guess I'll let you know. I've got a few days, I got a few days left.
From the program director perspective and apparently from the educator perspective, I think you're sitting pretty over there.
All
So
right,
good
well,
job.
I've got you guys buffalo.
All right, I'm going to ask each of you guys sort of different questions, so don't latch on to any one question here. But Eric, I'm going to start with you, sort of change it up a little bit. What is one thing you wish someone had told you, or a question you had asked before you went into freelancing?
Well, I think a question I would have asked myself.
Either asked yourself or gotten advice from someone else.
Yeah, when you lose and you exit one culture and you enter into making your own, I do feel like I needed a lot of input in terms of like knowing I wasn't just on my own, alone, because I am a collaborative person. At heart, I love my solitude, but I also really enjoy times where I'm part of a group doing things, and that makes me feel like I am human, because I can still, understand others and get out of my own head. A lot of times when you're freelancing, you're alone with your own thoughts, and the gremlins show up and the dragons get bigger in your head, and before you know it, you're making big deal out of things that aren't a big deal, or you're spending major time on minor things. And so I think it was really just about, I wish I knew more going in about how much I would need other people, even though I love my little bat cave.
I love it. Jen, what is your advice for someone who is trying to make a strong impression in a new job quickly? I think we've probably all dealt with a few people like that. But especially in sort of a really fast-paced, somewhat ambiguous agency environment, what advice would you have to that person who's trying to ramp up quickly?
It's twofold. One is be proactive. Chances are you were hired because they were short-staffed and they're stressed. So getting, really extensive time for training or onboarding may be tough. So the more proactive you can be with learning systems, meeting people, shadowing different roles on your team, people are going to notice that. It's going to help you, and people are going to take notice of that. And the other thing is have just the right amount of ego. Nobody likes when a junior comes in and thinks they know everything, but being a wallflower isn't going to get you noticed. And speaking particularly as a woman in this industry, it's especially hard sometimes to be heard and seen in those rooms. So figuring out a way to toe that line and be seen and heard without acting like a know-it-all, it's tough. It's easy to go in either direction, but both of those things I've noticed just watching people come into my agency, and also back when I was trying to learn how to do this, it was what kind of set me apart.
I like that. Corey, I believe that having a strong work ethic is a little bit of a difficult thing to describe, but I'm going to ask you to do it. How would you describe a strong work ethic?
Just being the person who gets things done. Don't bring problems to the table, bring solutions to the table. At the end of the day, it's pretty simple. You just have to have that mindset.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I like that. Amy, Jen earlier spoke about soft skills, but I'm going to punt the question to you. Pun intended.
Thank you.
With the football
I
joke there.
appreciate that.
What soft skills or habits helped you ramp up fast and feel like you belonged in a new team? And I'm specifically asking you that question because earlier you mentioned about culture.
Yeah. As I think back to just the first 90 days without crying, and I think through just how there was such a diverse group there, and then I think it also helped me a little bit to push a lot of those soft skills in a corporate setting because it was just my boss and I. So it was more like just regular communication between two friends. But then some of the outside criticism is where it pushed some of those soft skills to the forefront, and being able to accept the criticisms of fans and of upper management and different departments, and learning how to have those conversations about, yes, I understand that you want that, but that's not our red. That's the 49ers red. I know they look the same, but they're So having those conversations, and then learning how to deal with some of the interdepartmental drama, because that's always a thing. Sure. And it's just learning how to navigate those spaces, especially in corporate. It's so important to think human first. Yeah. To think human first. And so often we just want to focus on, well, I did this cool design, and okay, but nobody cares. Nobody likes you in the office. That's a problem. Like nobody.
That is a huge problem.
Nobody wants to do Christmas ornament exchange with you.
And not only that, it's not even the sort of social issues. It could actually stunt your career growth.
Exactly, especially in the NFL, because a lot of people, when you start at a team, you can easily move to another. Right, those families, the football is family, they continue. So people that come from Kansas City, they've come to the Cardinals, they've gone to Dallas, like so on and so forth. So it's one big football family. So it's really important to navigate the social spaces and the collaborative spaces and political spaces that happen in the office with care. Those soft skills are going to be so important. And then, of course, saying and doing what you're going to say.
Not only those soft skills, but those interpersonal skills, social skills. Those can be challenging. Personally, those took me some of the longest to learn.
This is how I know I'm not made for corporate.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, oh, you can't say that? Oh, okay. Oops. Why am I going to HR again?
All right, a question for each of you, and be as transparent as you're willing to be. Amy, let's start with you. Have you ever been fired or let go from a job?
Victoria's Secret, my first job. My first job, Victoria's Secret, at the mall. That was it. Design job, no. Is that
No.
what you meant? Sorry.
I don't care.
Design job, no.
What did that experience teach you, or what did you gain from that experience?
That and it was totally my fault. I called out for a shift that I shouldn't have called out for, and that was just if I say I'm going to be available and I say I'm going to do something, I need to do it. And if I cannot, then those lines of communication need to be open. So basically, it was me taking accountability, learning that accountability really early on.
Goes back to that work ethic.
It does. And so thankfully it was a Victoria's Secret job as a teenager.
Sure.
But yeah, that was enough.
Yeah.
That was enough to teach. Just kind of like being late, work ethic. Like I was late on a print project. It just happened to be the tickets for the season. And that cost the Cardinals a pretty penny.
Oops.
And so when my students are like, but on my evaluations, she doesn't let us do late work. No, because I learned my lesson. And I'm passing it on to you because that was a $50,000 mistake.
That is exactly what I tell my students. They get a little antsy about me not letting them resubmit, no late work, all that stuff, but that's the expectation of the industry, so thank you. Corey, let's go over to you. Have you ever been fired, and what did you learn if
I've
you
always
did?
worked for myself,
Okay.
but I've lost clients. You know,
A client can fire you.
they can, and mainly over disagreements.
Yeah.
We don't like doing mediocre work. We think that's kind of temporarily successful kind of stuff, so we kind of fight for what we believe in. And life's too short to do something you're not.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be there, and we mutually agreed that we didn't want to be there. So that's the closest I've come.
Yeah, and what did you gain? I think you talked a little bit about it, but what did you personally gain from that experience?
Patience.
Goes back to
I
patience.
hate that word.
Yeah.
No, I love that word.
If I would have had a little bit more patience, maybe it could have been salvaged. But yeah, that was kind of. I think patience solves a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think there's a quote out there somewhere where it's like, just shut up. You can be an asshole tomorrow.
I think that's really nice.
There's some wisdom there.
Yeah, there's some wonderful wisdom in there. Jen, coming to you, have you ever been fired?
Only once. It was a design job. It was in 2008 when the recession hit, so I don't fully take blame for it. But it was the first time that I had experienced what happens in an agency when a big client is lost and someone's got to go. In retrospect, I don't know at the time if this really dawned on me, but I do think it's what sort of ingrained in me moving forward to prove my value in as many ways as possible. Because in that instance, I hadn't, and I don't think it was a no-brainer probably for me to go. Whereas every place I've been since, I have dodged layoffs because I can help in ways that other people probably can't. So it sort of goes back to those soft skills and the things. They're going to be able to find someone to replace the designer when they need it, but they might not be able to replace someone who is as ingrained in our internal processes and training and all that kind of stuff that I've become accustomed to.
Very nice. Eric, how about you? Have you ever been fired?
I'll answer your question, but I got to kind of tell you this real quick first to explain kind of the situation. A long time ago in Northwest Phoenix, there was an orchard. People loved the orchard. But they were told that the city was going to come in and remove the orchard. So it caused an uproar.
Sure.
What they stopped doing is watering it. And so people were proud to see all the dead trees one day go. I have been part of an in-house team where the designers needed to be let go, but the leaders, in quotes, were not brave enough to let them go, so they stopped giving them work. And it's called, I think, organic or attrition.
Yep.
Attrition.
And they started outsourcing all the work. So it left people looking at us like, why are you still here? And we moved on. I've never been fired, but I had to pick up my stuff and leave because I
You
knew
stopped getting watered.
Yeah, I knew it was time to go.
Yeah.
So that happens in corporate culture, and
Yes, it
it's a
does.
sad thing, but it happens.
Yeah, it does. I will share with you guys, I got fired from my dream job. It shattered my world really quick. I was working on Arcadia Trail for PetSmart, and COVID came through, and they weren't worried about getting new products on the shelves. They were worried about getting the products on the shelves. And it happens. And I think that the important message is that you are not your job. Right? And so I'm going to transition back a little bit. We got a little serious there, but I'm going to go back to asking each of you individual questions. Amy, what advice do you have about making mistakes?
Oh God, make them. Make a lot of them. Don't make it a habit, but make a lot of them. I think if you do everything without expecting a mistake, without expecting a revision, then what are you learning?
Right.
Like you have to fuck up a couple times.
Yeah.
You just have to. And without that, I see a lot of students who are looking for that. I did it. I put effort into it. Like that's it. Like I shouldn't have to redo it because I put the effort in.
Effort does not equal outcome.
Almost doesn't count. So it's like you have to mess up. We purposely build revisions into programs, our programs, so students know that they are going to have to redo it. Yeah. So if you're just expecting it to be right the first time, I don't know anybody that has lived their life.
Anyone here ever gotten it right the first time?
Almost never.
It turned out I was wrong.
Yeah.
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, mistakes they have to happen. They have to
love
happen.
it.
It builds resiliency, and it has to happen.
I love it. Jen, I'm going to come back to you with your favorite topic, soft skills. And I'm going to ask you the same exact question that I asked Amy earlier. What soft skills or habits do you think helped you ramp up fast and feel like you belonged in a new role?
There were quite a few of them, but I think I'll focus on the biggest one is interdepartmental collaboration.
I think in the class I call it cross-functional collaboration.
Yes,
So
okay.
to sort of connect
Very
the dot
similar,
there.
yes. And in an agency environment in particular, there's there's media, there's interactive, finance, there's account service is a big one. They're the go-between between creative and the client. Yeah, a new business, organic business. We have so many, and I've said it before, but there's this reputation about the creative team sometimes, which is they're difficult to work with, and they're just
Floozy.
Yes, they don't care about budgets or business or whatever. And I myself, because I used to be a business owner, I came into this role and immediately just like made friends with all departments, and they're like, holy shit, Jen actually knows how to stick to a budget or talk to a client. Like, they'll send me to cover for them. And no one else on my team, I think, very few will do that. Yeah. So I do think that building that collaboration skill with people that don't do what you do is pretty vital. You're going to become the ally on those teams. You're going to start getting your way on stuff. You can advocate for your team. It really does snowball, and then if
become a pawn in one of those office politics games.
Yeah,
yeah.
But in a good way, for sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
in a good way.
And then you absolutely get to start taking part in things like new business, and like I myself participate in our RFPs that we go for and pitches, and being on a pitch team is invigorating.
Yeah.
When you get to do the work without the client.
And really quick, explain what an RFP is.
It stands for Request for Proposal.
Yep.
And in the sense that I'm referring to it, we're on the receiving end of that. So a company will put out an RFP. They're looking for usually an agency of record or an agency for a campaign. And multiple agencies are invited. And you just have to come in with your best ideas, your best strategy, and sell yourself basically and pin yourself against other agencies in town. And you don't usually know who. Sometimes afterwards you do.
Yeah.
But they're very stressful. They're usually tied to a big, financial gain for your company.
Large documents.
Yeah, they have a lot of qualifications you have to meet. But they're also really fun from a creative standpoint because there's no parameters really.
Yeah.
I joke, but the best work for a client is where the client's not involved.
Yeah.
So you get to be the expert. You get to bring your thinking. There's some debate on how people do that, whether or not you're going to present creative. It's called spec work, which I'm sure you get into with your classes. Yep. But if you decide to do spec work, sometimes that can be really fun because, again, no constraints.
Love it. Love it. Corey, When you've maybe seen others struggle in those first 90 days, what do you think is generally the most common thing that holds someone back?
Fear of feedback, fear of failure. I probably hear it 1,000 times a day. I didn't want to show anybody that. I didn't want to put it up on the server because then people would see it. I didn't know what you wanted, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Lack of confidence.
sort of touching a little bit on imposter syndrome there.
Yeah, and just the understanding, to go back to what others have said, is like 80% of what we do ends up on the cutting room floor.
Yep.
You just got to get used to that. And we're in the business of making mistakes. We're in the business of filtering bad ideas to get to the good ones. And if you're not comfortable with that, you're probably entering the wrong workspace.
I like to tell my students that our job as designers isn't about the one thing that made it out and is really pretty. It's about the trash can full of ideas that no one saw.
I had a professor who said, it is not your job to find the right idea, it's to eliminate all the bad ones.
Yep, I love that.
And
Very
that's
nice.
pretty true.
Yep.
30 years later.
Those words of wisdom that stick with you. All right, and then last but not least, Eric. I tell my students, we've touched on this a little bit, but I tell them that I believe the fastest way to grow in this industry is with a mentor. And I think you've spoken a lot about working with others and finding people within your community. Do you have any similar tips that maybe aren't so mentor focused that students should take with them into their first 90 days?
With regard to
Any tips that you think that students might have in addition to having a mentor?
Well, giving thought to really where they want to go long term and viewing their lives as this, not just this in the moment, and understanding that our growth happens over a lifetime. It's not about just right now. So you might take a job that's not your favorite right now. It's okay. You might learn some stuff from that job that'll help you in your next one. And try not to view things as so high stakes. Like Amy said, it's okay to make mistakes. And if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not growing very much because you're not learning from the things that have taught you. It's life experience, right? It's like we know not to do certain things anymore, either because they're not for us or they don't fit our values or they didn't end up well for clients. But being more courageous about experimenting with things that are creative versus fearing, all the what ifs. That'll probably never happen.
Yeah, experimentation, iteration, trying new things. I usually say fuck around and find out.
Exactly, yeah.
Something totally different over here. But
Yeah.
okay.
Awesome. Thank you guys, all of you guys. I really appreciate you guys being on the panel here. That's going to be it for today's lecture. Make sure to follow up with your lab, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on Slack.